My husband has selective hearing. Ask him to take in the laundry, and it's like I never spoke. Ask him to wash the dishes, and he pretends the words bounce off an invisible wall. If I finally snap and yell, he just stares at me in silence, as if watching a show, letting my frustration bubble over. Then, inevitably, he says, "I never said I wouldn't do it. Why are you so worked up?" I've had enough. Exhaustion and irritation finally push me to play his game, developing selective hearing of my own. And now, the one losing his mind is him. After dinner, I took Leo to the bathroom for his bath. On the way, I reminded Addison to handle the dishes. He barely looked up from his phone, murmuring an "uh-huh," without real attention. When I returned, freshly dressed and with Leo tucked in, the kitchen remained a mess. Addison sprawled on the sofa, scrolling, snickering at something on the screen. "Addison, didn't I ask you to do the dishes?" I said, teeth gritted. Without looking up, he muttered, Yeah, I know. Don't rush me." I bit back a retort. Arguing wouldn't help. After putting Leo to bed, I returned to the living room. The dishes were still there. He was a grown man. He shouldn't need repeated reminders for simple chores. Sighing, I left it and went to bed, though irritation churned beneath the surface. The next morning, the mess remained. Overnight, grease had hardened into an almost unbearable film. My repeated requests had gone ignored while Addison lounged on his phone until late. Rage simmered. I scrubbed the table, cleaned the dishes, and made breakfast. By the time he surfaced, I was already eating. "Oh," he said, feigning surprise. "Breakfast." He sat and dug in. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my anger. "Addison, I reminded you twice yesterday to do the dishes. And yet, here we are this morning, nothing done." He ate on, silent. I slammed my fork down, glare sharp. Finally, he looked up, grinning sheepishly. "Oops, guess I forgot. You're really worked up, huh? Don't worry," he added lightly. "Next time I'll handle it. Promise." Helplessness washed over me as I looked at his smug, carefree expression. After breakfast, I went to wake Leo. I told Addison to take the laundry from the washer and hang it to dry. He perked up, mock heroic. Mission accepted. I thought after yesterday he'd actually do it. A few shirts, 5 minutes at most. I got Leo dressed and dropped him at daycare, then headed to work. That evening, my stomach sank at the sight of an empty balcony. The clothes were still in the washer, damp and crumpled. Mildew had begun its claim. I had no choice but to rewash everything. When Addison arrived, he collapsed onto the sofa and pulled out his phone. The washer was audible from the living room, but he acted oblivious. When the cycle beeped, I shouted from the kitchen, "Addison, the laundry's done. Go hang it up." Silence. I tried again, louder. Still nothing. Frustrated, I stormed over and kicked his foot. He glanced up, annoyed. "I heard you," he said. "I heard you the first time." I shot back. "It's just some clothes. I'll get to it." I couldn't contain it any longer. "You'll get to it? I asked you this morning. Did you do it then?" He shrugged, clicking his tongue. "I forgot. You just wash them again. It's not a big deal." His casual dismissal made me feel ridiculous. Steeling myself, I said firmly, "Hang the clothes. I'm going back to cook." Addison didn't respond. I returned to the kitchen to finish dinner. By the time I carried the food out, the laundry still hadn't been hung. Glancing around, I noticed the bathroom door was closed. Great. He was hiding in there. I'd had enough. I hung the clothes myself. When Addison emerged, the laundry was already drying. He shot me a smirk, but didn't say a word as he sat at the table, phone in hand, the volume from his videos filling the apartment. Leo, curious and perceptive at 3 years old, watched silently. "Mommy, why can Daddy use his phone at dinner, but I can't?" I knew the best way to teach him was by example. "Addison, can you just eat your dinner? Put the phone down," I said quietly. He ignored me, scrolling. I raised my voice. "Addison, put the phone away." Still nothing. I finally shouted, my words echoing in the room. "Are you listening? Put the phone down and eat." He rolled his eyes. I know. You talk so much, Chloe. Just like my mother." "And you," he added, sneering, "don't go into early menopause on me." I felt my patience nap. One simple request, one task, shouldn't require multiple reminders. Was he deaf? Or was this deliberate? I didn't want to fight in front of Leo, so I tried to reason with him. "Look at him. You're eating and playing on your phone, and Leo is watching. He'll copy everything you do. Addison shrugged, unconcerned. He can do it too. I'm not stopping him. My blood boiled. Do you even hear yourself? He's 3. What about bad habits? He said casually. He won't starve. I fed Leo first, then ate my own dinner. Once Addison was finished, he immediately returned to his phone. Addison, go give Leo his bath, I instructed. He didn't respond. I kicked his foot. What? I said. Go give your son a bath. Are you deaf? He let out an irritated tisk before muttering. All right, I got it. So much nagging. By the time I finished, I found him lying in bed, still on his phone, while Leo sat watching TV. The bath hadn't happened. At that moment, I realized it wasn't hearing, it was intentional. He knew if he ignored me long enough, I'd do it myself. His behavior had changed drastically since his mother had left 3 days ago. Addison and I had met and fallen in love on our own. After a year of dating, I became unexpectedly pregnant, and we married. I had a promising career and wasn't ready to quit, so his mother came to help. She was amazing, cooked 4 unique meals a day, cared for Leo, and let me rest. Life was effortless with her around. Now, with Leo 3 and starting preschool, and his mother back in her hometown, Addison assumed he'd continue to be waited on. He never lifted a finger before. Why start now? I realized a home only works when both people contribute. Too much effort from one person leads to breaking point. It was time Addison experienced the consequences of selective hearing himself. That night, I bathed Leo, read him a story, and tucked him in. The next morning, I made breakfast only for Leo and me. When Addison finally came out, the kitchen was empty. Where's breakfast? He asked. I ignored him, focused on packing Leo's school bag. Where's breakfast? He repeated, louder this time. Oh, we already ate, I said. You didn't make any for me, he snapped. I shrugged. You never ask. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. He couldn't handle not being waited on. That evening, he had a work dinner, and I was perfectly happy. Leo and I went out, had dinner, played at an indoor playground, and returned home exhausted. The next morning, I reminded Addison to hang the laundry, knowing he wouldn't. His clothes remained in the washer when I returned from work. I didn't touch them. If he couldn't handle his own laundry, I wasn't going to do it for him. By the following morning, Addison realized he had nothing clean to wear. One uniform was still in the washer, the other smelled. Chloe, why didn't you hang my clothes? He demanded, voice sharp. I raised an eyebrow. I asked yesterday morning. You didn't do it. He had assumed, as before, I'd take care of it. He hadn't expected me to let the clothes sit. The stench hit him like a wall when he finally retrieved them. Did you do this on purpose? He asked, incredulous. Last time I forgot. You noticed immediately. This time, you left them for a reason, didn't you? He had no answer. Pulling on the only clean uniform left, he headed to work, defeated. I thought after the last few days, Addison might finally get the hint. But then I overheard him on the phone with one of his friends. I'm done, man. It's just a bunch of little stuff, and she's always on my case. If she cooks, I have to do the dishes. If she washes the dishes, I have to bathe our son. If she does the laundry, I have to hang it up. Why me? He complained. It's such small things. Can't she just do it herself? When my mom was here, she never asked me to lift a finger. I didn't catch what his friend said, but whatever it was, it made Addison even angrier. I tried. I used to drag my feet, not do the dishes, not hang the laundry. And what happened? She stopped making me dinner. She only washes her clothes and Leo's. I'm serious, man. I'm done. If she hadn't gotten pregnant, do you think I would have married her? I stood just outside the study, fists clenched so tightly my knuckles ached. So that was it. The only reason he married me was because I was pregnant. Not love, not devotion, just obligation. Even with his mother around, so kind and helpful, our household had run smoothly. I never imagined Addison harbored such resentment. The truth hit me. He had been doing this deliberately all along. If he despised me this much, maybe it was time I let go. Life went on as usual. That night, after dinner, I gave Leo a bath. On my way out of the dining room, I reminded Addison, remember the dishes. He didn't even glance up. Fine, I took that as agreement. When I returned from the bathroom, the table was clear, but the dishes were piled in the sink, untouched. If he wasn't going to wash them, I wouldn't either. The next morning, the dishes remained. I woke Leo, got him ready, and we went out for breakfast. When Addison came down and saw the empty apartment and the mountain of dirty dishes, he knew I was furious. But Addison's mind works differently. Most people would see that and think, she's mad. I should take care of this. Not him. He doubled down, seeing it as a contest. Who would crack first? That evening, I told him I had to work late, but really, I just took Leo out for dinner. For 3 straight days, we ate out, leaving Addison to fend for himself. I only did laundry for Leo and me. The dishes piled up, mold forming, the smell turning rancid. Eventually, Addison couldn't take it. He called his mom, on video. He gave her a full tour of our apartment, messy as ever. "Mom, look at this. You've barely been gone." And Chloe's completely stopped pretending. "These dishes have been sitting in the sink for days. She hasn't touched them. The floor's sticky. You could ruin a shoe, but she won't mop. And the laundry. She only washes her own clothes, never mine. Tell me, what's the point of having a wife like this?" He waited for his mom to scold me, to summon me back into line. But there was only a short pause. "Why don't you do it?" she asked. "It's your home too, isn't it?" Addison stammered. I don't know how to do chores. Besides, chores are women's work, right? "Why should I do it?" he added nervously. His mom laughed. "Who says chores are women's work? And if that's your logic, then earning money to support the family is men's work, yes? Does your salary even cover your wife and child?" Humiliated, Addison could only hang up. Addison still hadn't lifted a finger. He called his friend again, venting, and this time got a new idea. "If your wife refuses to do the chores, cut off her allowance. Make her use her own money for the family. She won't last long. She'll be crawling back in no time." Addison thought that sounded brilliant. Since marriage, things had steadily declined. After Leo was born, we even slept in separate beds for a year. His mother had convinced us that married couples should share a bed, or things could go wrong. He had no idea how much I actually earned. That evening, Addison told me bluntly, "I'm not giving you any household money anymore. Since you're not cooking, we can just live separate lives." He expected fear. Instead, I just nodded. "Fine by me." He froze, clearly stunned. He quickly decided I was only pretending to be calm, certain I'd give it eventually. Eating out every day wasn't ideal, but I didn't care. My original thought was to hire a cleaner, but that would have played right into Addison's plan. Instead, I packed a bag for Leo and me and headed to my parents' house. It was closer to my office anyway. I sent Addison a text saying we'd be staying a few days. He didn't reply. I was perfectly content with the quiet. Within a month, Addison couldn't stand it and came to my parents' house, carrying bags of gifts. "Chloe, we're married. It's not right for you to keep staying at your parents'," he said. "Come on back. I came all this way to get you." I smiled. "Is it the mess at home, or are you just looking for a maid?" A flash of anger crossed his face, but he forced a weak laugh. "So," I pressed, "is the house clean? Are the dishes done?" He said nothing. I pulled out a document from my purse. "Sign it. Divorce papers." Panic overtook him. "What? Why are we suddenly talking about divorce?" I shrugged lightly. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I know I was wrong." Addison thought he could control me, but he didn't expect me to completely disengage. He tore the divorce papers in front of me, promising to change. First thing, he hired a cleaning service, spending a fortune to have the apartment spotless, and send me photos. "Honey, look, it's all clean. I promised to do my share of the chores." When I remained unimpressed, he transferred $10,000 into my account. "From now on, I'll give you $5,000 a month for household expenses, and I'll handle all the chores myself. I swear." My parents, seeing how humbled he was, urged me to think about Leo. A divorce would mean growing up without a father, and that wasn't ideal. With their support and Addison's repeated promises, I agreed to return. And he truly changed. He stopped playing on his phone during meals, did the dishes without being asked, and even read stories to Leo at bedtime, things he had never done before. For a while, I believed he had genuinely realized his mistakes. Then I learned he had been laid off. The economy was bad, companies were downsizing, and Addison, never considered essential, had been on the list. No wonder he was desperate for me to return. It finally clicked. Those mornings he pretended to go to work. Where had he really been going all this time? Addison couldn't keep his unemployment a secret for long. Eventually, he broke down, apologizing through tears. He hadn't meant to hide it. He was just afraid of my reaction. I wasn't angry. In this economy, layoffs were normal. I get it, I said gently. If you don't have work, just help out around the house. Addison's face lit up with relief. From that point on, life changed. I came home from work to a hot, ready-made dinner. Addison bathed Leo afterward and reminded me, remember to do the dishes later. I nodded. When he saw the dishes still piled on the table afterward, he frowned instinctively. Chloe, remember to do the dishes. I nodded again, quietly amused. The next morning, when he woke to make breakfast, the dishes remained untouched. He finally snapped, barging into the bedroom. Chloe, are you deaf? I told you multiple times yesterday to do the dishes. Why aren't they done? I rubbed my eyes, smiled calmly, and didn't say a word. For a moment it felt like karma, just a fraction of the frustration I had endured. And Addison was already losing it. He fidgeted, guilty, suddenly aware that he sounded exactly like he used to when I yelled at him. Adopting a serious tone, Addison pleaded, Honey, I've admitted I was wrong. Why are you still treating me like this? Are you doing this on purpose? Yes, I was doing it on purpose. He needed to feel how frustrating it is when someone ignores you deliberately. Eventually, we had a real conversation. Addison admitted he had been intentionally avoiding chores, thinking I would eventually do them myself. I nodded. I know you did it on purpose. He confessed that I was only returning the favor. We called a truce. Life returned to some semblance of normalcy. With Addison home, the apartment sparkled, and dinner was hot on the table every night. Then he found a new job. The salary was lower, but it was still income. Almost immediately, he reverted to old habits. Dishes, laundry, trash, he would agree to do them, but never actually act. One day, I reminded him to put new bags in all the trash cans after I took out the garbage. He barely looked up. Okay, he mumbled, scrolling on his phone. Returning to empty trash cans, I felt an exhaustion I hadn't known before. It wasn't the chores themselves. It was the endless, repetitive neglect. When he saw me throwing away used sanitary products without a liner, he was disgusted. Chloe, that's gross. I gestured toward the overflowing living room bin. You didn't line this one either. Addison huffed. So what? You could have just done it. It's not a big deal. Why is everything my responsibility? I muttered, ignoring him, and heading to the bedroom. It hit me. Habits don't change that easily. The only reason he had been obedient while unemployed was because he had no income. The moment he worked again, he slipped back into laziness. I was exhausted and began questioning whether this marriage was worth continuing, even for Leo. That night, I asked him to do the dishes. He agreed, but by the time I finished bathing Leo, the table was still messy. I scooped the dishes into the trash and carried the entire bin to the dumpster while Addison remained glued to his phone. The next day, I told him to hang the laundry. He ignored it. When I got home, the clothes reeked of mildew. I threw them in the trash too, and discarded that bin as well. If he wouldn't do the chores, fine. Nobody would. After a few rounds of this, he finally noticed. Why are there so few dishes in the kitchen? I replied calmly. The ones that weren't washed got thrown out. Shock painted his face. Are you insane? You could have just washed them. I nodded. You don't wash them, I don't wash them. They get thrown out. A few days later, he noticed more missing clothes. Where are my clothes? Washer. Didn't hang. Stank. Threw them out. I said without looking up. Addison finally exploded. Chloe, what is wrong with you? You do chores to mess with me, right? I shot back. Are dishes free? Are clothes free? It's not a big deal to wash them. You're doing this on purpose. Yes, on purpose. I snapped. I thought after our last talk you had changed. But I guess a leopard can't change its spots. If you hadn't lost your job, you wouldn't have come to my parents' house. You wouldn't have lifted a finger for chores. Addison ran his hands through his hair. It's just a few chores. Do you have to make such a big deal out of it? I'm tired from work. Why should I come home and do everything for you? Are chores automatically my job? Is this not your house? Don't I have a job too? I finally told Addison I wanted a divorce. This marriage was draining me completely. What I wanted was a true partnership, where both parents worked together for the family, pulling in the same direction. Not one where I carried all the weight. Addison just scoffed. Chloe, that's enough. You already tried to divorce me once. Now you're starting this again. It's just small stuff. Even my parents tried to talk me out of it. It's all minor, they said. If you won't do it, just do a little more yourself. But I refused. If he couldn't handle small responsibilities, what would happen when life threw bigger challenges at us? He'd only shirk those too. News of the divorce reached his mother. She called, apologetic and regretful. I didn't raise him right. It's my fault, she said. I always told him to focus on school and that I'd handle the housework. I never imagined he'd take it for granted. She explained that she had wanted to leave because she knew Addison wasn't contributing to the household and feared it would eventually cause fights. She didn't object to the divorce, insisting Addison needed a hard lesson. I rented an apartment near my office and moved in with Leo. The thought of returning to that chaotic home was unbearable. Life for the two of us was calmer. I cooked a few simple meals and Leo helped with little chores, like replacing trash bags or peeling garlic. "Mommy, I want to grow up fast so I can help you more," he'd say, and my heart would swell with warmth. Addison hadn't signed the divorce papers, so I filed a lawsuit. He scoffed when he got the court summons. "You really think a judge will grant a divorce over something this trivial?" I smiled. "If not the first time, then the second. If not the second, then the third. Eventually, we'll get divorced." His panic was palpable. "Chloe, you want a divorce just because I don't do the dishes? You're insane." At first, Addison tried to outsource the chores, eating out and hiring cleaners when the house got messy. But his salary couldn't keep up with those expenses. He had no choice but to start cooking and cleaning himself. After a long day at work, he returned not to a ready meal but to the work of preparing dinner, eating, and washing up. By the time he was done, it was already 8 or 9 o'clock. Finally, Addison understood just how exhausting my days had been, and that included taking care of Leo on top of everything else. My workload had always been heavier. He came to my apartment, tears in his eyes, begging for forgiveness. "Honey, I never realized how hard you had it. Living like this for just a few days, I finally understand why you always asked for help," he admitted. Chores that seem simple, mopping the floor, doing the laundry, require constant attention and effort. One small lapse, and the work has to be done all over again. "Honey, please, for Leo's sake, give me another chance. I'm begging you. Our son can't grow up without his father," he pleaded. This time, I didn't soften. I realized what Addison was really missing wasn't a wife. It was someone to serve him. He wasn't remorseful because he truly understood my exhaustion. He just didn't want to overwork himself. If I forgave him and went back, he might change for a little while, but he wouldn't change for a lifetime. A person's true nature doesn't change. "Addison," I said firmly, "I gave you a chance. You're the one who didn't take it." When I returned home before, I had hoped he could change, but he didn't. He improved for a short while, then reverted to his old ways. Am I supposed to threaten divorce every time his true colors show? It's exhausting. Addison broke down, sobbing and promising he would never agree to a divorce, no matter what I said. Our case went to mediation. The mediator glanced at the evidence I submitted and raised an eyebrow. "Your husband hasn't really done anything wrong. He's just a little lazy with housework." "That's typical for men," she said. "As his wife, you should be more tolerant." I looked at her incredulously. "So, in your home, do you do all the chores yourself?" She smiled, clearly amused, and didn't answer. "And what exactly is a man's job then?" I pressed. Her lips pursed, but she stayed silent. Addison started crying again, begging for forgiveness. He promised he would help around the house if I gave him another chance. The mediator even began to speak on his behalf. But I stood firm. Divorce was the only option. In court, the judge was stunned when he heard my reason for wanting a divorce. My husband refused to do the dishes or hang laundry. "You want a divorce over something so small?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "Your husband says he'll change. You should give him another chance." I shook my head. "He won't change." The judge hesitated. "How can you know that if you don't try?" I almost laughed in frustration. It's never too late for men to mature, right? Over 30 and still maturing late. When exactly is he supposed to grow up? 60? 70? As Addison predicted, my first petition was rejected. I appealed, and the second attempt was denied too. Everyone told me it was trivial, that marriage requires tolerance. Even during the separation, Addison tried to prove himself. He came to my office frequently, and every few days, he'd take our son out to play. I could see him changing, but I still couldn't trust him to stay changed. In the second year of our separation, I filed for divorce again. This time, Addison signed the papers. He apologized, admitting he had been chauvinistic at first and had never realized the pain he caused. He smiled bitterly. Most divorces are for cheating, gambling, or abuse. I never imagined I'd get divorced for not doing housework. After the mandatory 1-month waiting period, we walked into the courthouse. Addison asked quietly, "Are you sure about this? Giving up our marriage over something so trivial?" I nodded. When the entire life you share is built on endless trivial frustrations, it's impossible to see any hope for the future. An hour later, we walked out with our divorce decrees. Holding the papers in my hand, I smiled. My life was finally beginning a new chapter.